Well, hello everyone and welcome back to the kitchen table. Listen, well, there's a lot to talk about, isn't there? But first up, I have to say a massive thank you to everyone who watched and enjoyed and commented on the kitchen table, the very special kitchen table that we did with Andrea Adamo. I was pleased with the way it came out, but you know, it's sometimes a little difficult to judge how it's going to go down with you guys, and you know, overwhelmingly the response was great. And do you know what was nice? I think you guys got to see a side of Mr. Adamo that perhaps we don't always see in the service park, and I think that came across. So thank you very much indeed for watching that, and thanks for all the wonderful comments that we had after the kitchen table with Mr. Adamo. It was really, really great to see, really great to read all of those comments. But, well, what is this kitchen table about? Well, there really can be only one topic to kick it off. That is Ott Tanak. And Ott Tanak's brilliant victory in this year's World Rally Championship. Do you know, he was the class act this year. You could argue that really for most of the 2018 season, he was the class of the field, and he was perhaps let down in 2018 by the reliability of that car. Now, the car was a lot more reliable this year. Yes, there were still gremlins there, weren't there? We saw them at the start of the year in particular, and in Sardinia, where all four cars suffered with those power steering issues. You know, that wasn't great, and it was a particular low point in the season for Tänak. But Tänak has overcome this, and he's driven beautifully. He's rarely made mistakes this year. He's made very, very few. Top of my head, I can't really think of one. I'm sure he did earlier on in the season make a small mistake somewhere. But Tänak is developing into the most competent of drivers. Competent, that's an understatement. Into the most intimidating of drivers. Well, he's got that kind of intimidatory factor that Loeb had about him, and that certainly Ogier had about him in the Volkswagen days, and perhaps in the Ford days as well. He's developing into a driver who is almost impossible to beat. That's a big statement, isn't it? Well, I said it earlier on in the year. Was he unbeatable? Well, when it goes well for Tänak, he is unbeatable. And when I say when it goes well, it's when everything comes together. It's his driving ability, it's the car, it's the conditions. It comes together, Tänak is unbeatable. And he's proven that this year. He really has been unbeatable. The car's beaten him once or twice. Yes, he might have beaten himself once, perhaps, during the season. But in a straight fight, he's been really very, very difficult to match. And you know, what we saw at the weekend in Spain was an absolute masterclass in how to achieve what was needed. What was needed, particularly after Ogier's early problems, was a bucket load of points. And he knew he could get those. And he knew he could get those by just driving within himself. It was a contained drive from Tänak. But he was never a million miles away. You know, okay, he was a little bit down at the end of day one. You might expect that with him being first on the road on gravel. Day two, well, he was up a different level, wasn't he? And he was consistently beating the high Hyundais. But he found himself at the end of the day, well, sitting back, I think he was in third place, wasn't he? Because he just lost a position, or just taken a position, sorry, from Loeb. But, you know, it was always very, very tight, very close. The first few stages on Sunday morning, very tight, very close. He was just driving to make sure he got through the stages, driving to maintain the position he was in. But then comes the power stage. What did he do in the power stage? Well, it was quite a phenomenal piece of driving. He showed us what he is capable of doing, and he showed us what all of the great champions in the WRC have been able to do in the past. And that is flick a switch and move up a gear. And it was devastating. It was devastating pace from Tänak in that power stage. And it took everyone by surprise. I think we all just assumed, yep, he'll settle for the third place, he'll take the points, and we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens in the power stage. And yeah, you know, if Thierry Neuville wins it, and if he is a couple of places behind, well, we'll go to Australia, he'll get the points there. That was never on Tänak's mind. Tänak was all about, whoops, just about lost my microphone there. Tänak knew what he had to do in that stage. If he won the stage, he was champion, and he was going to win it. From the start line, helmet was on, lights went off, I am going to win this stage. And he blew everyone away. And as I say, it's very reminiscent of Loeb back in the day, where the others struggled to match Loeb's steady pace. And what we saw all weekend was Tänak's steady pace. And then what we saw in the final stage was Tänak plus, plus, plus. And it was magnificent to watch. It really was. And he fully deserved it. And you know, he really has developed into the champion that we all knew he was going to be. We all knew that Tänak had the potential to be the world champion. Now, there was a time where we thought he's thrown it away. He really has thrown it away. And I'm talking about years ago. We're going back to 2012, I think it was, when he had his first chance in a World Rally car with M Sport. And you know, it didn't go his way. He crashed a lot, made lots of mistakes. He fell out with Malcolm. He fell out with Marco Martin. He had an attitude that really just wasn't serving him well. But it was a measure of the man that he became that he went off, and in 2013, we never saw him in the World Rally Championship. Didn't really see him at the end of 2012, didn't see him in 2013, and it took till Sweden in 2014 that we saw Ott Tanak re-emerging into the World Rally Championship. And you know, he went away, no one really saw him, did a bit of rallying back home in Subarus and various other cars in Estonia. But what he did, he used that time to get his head straight, to work out exactly what he wanted to do with his life. The prodigious talent that was there, he had to work out a way of getting that talent behind the wheel and translating that talent into results. And he knew things had to change, and he came back a different person. He went away a precocious child, and he came back a mature young man with a firm focus on what he had to do to become World Rally Champion. And the way he went about it was quite remarkable. 2014 good, 2015 even better, 2016, 2014, sorry, it was 2015, 2016, wasn't it? And then with the new World Rally cars, well, he was just absolutely in his element, and he took that first victory back in Sardinia all those years ago, and he's just kicked on from then, and he's got better, and he's got better, and he's got better. And a big part of that was bringing Martin into the car, and there were a lot of question marks when Martin came into the car. Martin Järveoja, if I've pronounced that right, I can never get it right. You know, he didn't have a lot of experience of really fast rally cars. He had quite a lot of experience back home in Estonia. He had a little bit of World Championship experience, but not a lot. And there were questions that were asked, but my goodness me, they gelled and they worked well together. And really from the very first rally, they were a team, and they were a formidable team. And it's just worked wonders. And Tänak taking a world title for Estonia. And I was there at that final stage. I was there with all those Estonian fans. And let me tell you, it was one of the most remarkable atmospheres I have seen anywhere. The Estonians had colour, they had volume, they had atmosphere to any occasion. And you know, we were 4.5, 5 kilometres up a mountain road where that stage stopped, and there was no access. What did they do? They walked and they trekked and they hiked all the way up this mountain road, and there must have been 7,000, 8,000 of them. Must have been at least, perhaps even more. And it was just great. The singing, the cheering, the atmosphere was just quite incredible. And when Ott and Martin came through, you know, a moment you'll never forget as they erupted, and the noise. I mean, it was like being at Wembley Stadium in the UK. It was like being at one of the great footballing or sporting events, and it was one of the great sporting events. And for Estonia, perhaps the greatest sporting event that they've ever had. And it was a joy to witness it, and it's been a joy to watch Ott's progress over the years. It's been a joy to watch his transformation. What's never ever gone is that underlying talent, supreme talent, that's been there from the Pirelli Star Driver days, even perhaps before that, if you were following his career in Estonia. That never left him. That precocious ability to be able to do things in rally cars that other people couldn't do, to be able to go that little bit quicker than his peers could go, never left him. But he needed to refine his approach, and he did it brilliantly. And watching the transformation has been incredible. I have to say that, you know, things have changed slightly with Ott over the last year and a half, and that he's become incredibly focused and intense when he's in the stages. And you'll have noticed it at the stop lines. Sometimes it's a little difficult. You know, at the stop line when you're asking for a question, sometimes it's a little difficult with Ott because, you know, he is so focused, he is so intense, he is so concentrated on what he has to do, which is to get that car as quickly as he can through those stages. And sometimes he can be a bit abrupt, he can be a bit brusque, he can be a little difficult to interview at times. But that's his prerogative, and I have no problems with that because I know what he is doing. He is fully concentrating on the job in hand. He doesn't want to be asked silly questions. He doesn't want to be asked the same question 3 or 4 times because that distracts him from what he's got to do. And really what I compare it with is an experience I had when I was an awful lot younger, many, many years ago. It was the 1984 British Open golf tournament at St Andrews in the UK, and I was a 14-year-old lad, and I'd gone along with my brother. We were camping out very close to where we lived, but we were camping out for the weekend. We bought the programme, and in the programme there was a photo of every single golfer that was taking part in the Open that year, and we got the autographs of everyone bar one golfer. And that one golfer just would not talk to the fans. He had people following him everywhere. He had them waiting outside the back of the clubhouse, waiting outside his hotel. He would not talk to the fans for 1 minute because he, like Tänak, was fully focused, fully concentrated on what he had to do. Who was that man? Well, it was the man that won the tournament. It was the man that went on to be the greatest golfer, perhaps, that ever lived. Certainly the biggest personality that we've ever seen in golfing, and that was Severiano Ballesteros. And he had that ultimate winner's approach. When he got onto the golf course, it was all about winning. And if he had to upset a few people along the way, well, unfortunately, that was collateral damage. I feel Ott has got that same intensity of focus these days. And yes, it's scary, but it's entirely understandable. And Ott, you know, you can say what you like to us at stage ends and interviews. You can do what you like. You can behave the way you feel you have to. No problems. Because what we see on the stages is brilliance, is absolute brilliance. Are we seeing the start of another period of domination here from Ott Tanak? Well, very early to tell. Too early to tell. You know, what we had with the Loeb Citroën days is we had Loeb firmly in the Citroën camp. That is why we had that period of domination. The car was built around him and he stuck with Citroën for all of his career up until this return with Hyundai, and it was utterly dominant. The same with Ogier in the Volkswagen days. You know, the car was built around him and the team, the package was unbeatable. And that is why we got the dominance there. What are we going to see now though? Because as we know, remarkably, Tänak is off from Toyota. He is going, and let me tell you, David Evans wrote it on Friday. I'll tell you about my mug in a minute or two. David Evans from Autosport, the best journalist without any question of doubt in the WRC, without any question of doubt, wrote on Friday in Autosport, Tänak is off to Hyundai, and he's 100% correct. Tänak is off to Hyundai, and I don't know when we're going to get the announcement, any day soon, I would think. I don't think there's going to be too long that we have to wait for that announcement. Will Tänak have the same ability to win rallies and to drive quickly in Hyundai? Well, without any doubt. What will be interesting, though, is that Tanak's teammates will be Thierry Neuville. We'll come on to who his other teammates might be shortly. And Neuville is a very similar character, a very similar driver. Hasn't managed to quite find the consistent pace that Tänak has found in the latter part of last year and this year. But the two of them in the same machinery, with the same opportunities, will be very, very interesting. It really will be interesting. And who will come out on top? Well, right now, if I had to bet, my money would be on Tänak. But Neuville is still hungry. He's still learning. He still hasn't achieved his ultimate goal. Tänak has achieved his ultimate goal, which is to win the world title. He will now want to kick on and win many titles. Neuville has got the hunger for that one title that he feels he's deserved for the last 5 or 6 years. That is an interesting dynamic. And it'll take a special bloke to manage that. Well, we know there's a special bloke at Hyundai. Andrea Adamo is a very special bloke indeed. So I'm looking forward to seeing that. I think one of those two will be world champion next year in a Hyundai. Which one it'll be, I really don't know just now. My money's slightly on Ott for that one. But do you know, this whole situation with Tänak leaving Toyota creates a real problem for Toyota, a real problem. Clearly, they've been used to success. You know, they won the manufacturers last year. They've won the drivers this year. They may win the manufacturers this year. They may not. We'll have to wait and see. But what they've got used to is success in the stages, winning rallies, and success with the championships, drivers' titles, manufacturers' titles. There's a massive amount of money going into that program. And when you invest a lot of money, you want returns. And how, on the face of it, are Toyota going to get anything like the return next year that they've enjoyed these past 2 seasons? It's going to be very difficult. It is going to be very difficult because Tänak is the dominant driver, and the nearest driver to Tänak, you might argue, is Thierry Neuville. There is only one other driver who can challenge those two and who has consistently challenged those two. And if you want to talk about elite drivers, and I talk quite regularly about elite drivers that can win any rally, there are now only 3. You know, there may have been 4 or 5 at the start of this year. There are now only 3. It is Tänak, it is Neuville, and it is Ogier. Ogier still has the ability to win championships. He definitely has the ability to win any rally. He has the desire, I think, particularly after this year, to add one more championship to his just incredible return of 6 titles. But can he do it in his current team? Can he do it with Citroën? Well, do you know what? Ogier went to Citroën and he knew he was taking on a bit of a project. He knew when he went to Citroën, and I'm certain he spoke to previous drivers of the car, but he knew for sure what he was getting involved in, and he knew the car needed some work. But Ogier, I am also sure, was fairly confident that within a reasonable period of time that he could turn things around there. But what's happened with that car is every time they find a fix for one thing, that then impacts on another part of the engineering, and they have to find a fix for that. They're such unbelievably complex beasts, these World Rally cars, that, you know, they're delicate in some ways. You know, a minor adjustment here leads to major adjustments somewhere else. And this is what they found. They're constantly chasing, adjusting, fixing, knocking something else out, adjusting, fixing, knocking something else out. And it's a constant process. And what they're not doing is finding that level of performance that the Toyota has found, that the Hyundai has found, that the M Sport car has found. They're constantly playing catch up. And I think that's frustrated Sébastien Ogier more than just a touch this year. So the big rumour around the service part, and the big question being asked, with obviously the issues clearly that they have at Citroën, with the issue that is developing at Toyota with that massive investment and potentially, you know, a big hole in their driver lineup, is it possible that Sébastien Ogier could jump ship from Citroën, and for what is going to be, and he's quite clearly said this, his last season in the WRC, could he go and make it 3 different manufacturer victories in a Toyota? Well, I'll tell you what I think. I think it's possible. What does that depend on? Well, it depends on the contract to start off with that Seb has got with Citroën. Is there a 12-month breakout clause? Well, you know, the sensible answer, the sensible money would be on, yeah, he would. You know, he wouldn't commit himself to 2 years not knowing the product he was getting involved in. Yes, he'll sign up for 2 years, but I want a get-out clause after 12 months. That is possible. That is possible. And if he does have a get-out clause, what would it take to make him move from Citroën to Toyota? Well, I guess at the end of the day, with a lot of these things, you know, you write a very big check and generally you get your way. So that could happen. That really, really could happen. You know, if it doesn't happen, what are the options for Toyota for next year? Well, Chris Meek has to be looking good, that's for sure. Latvala may once again be given a reprieve. But, you know, they've got to be competing. They've got to be competing for wins. They've got to be competing for the Manufacturers' Championship. Kalle Rovanperä. Well, listen, Kalle Rovanperä is potentially the answer to who can challenge our Elite 3. Could be Kalle Rovanperä, but not next year. Certainly not in the first half of next year, and potentially not even into the following year. Rovanperä will need time. He will need time to be allowed to make mistakes. He cannot be pitched in at the start of the year being told, yeah, go out, learn the car, learn the rallies. Oh, but at the same time, you're our number 3 driver, so just remember, you've always got to get to the finish to score manufacturer points. That is a completely different situation. So if we have Robin Perez, the full-time number 3 driver, what are Toyota going to do about the Manufacturers' Championship? Effectively driving, at least for half of the year, with 2 drivers in the manufacturers. Effectively, because you can't put that pressure on the young kids. You really can't. And who are the drivers that are going to give you the points? Well, I've already mentioned Chris Meek. I think he's got to be in a good position. But Chris, as we've seen this year, he has the ability to win stages. He has the ability to win stages by quite some margin at times. He has struggled a little to maintain that speed through rallies to then convert those stage wins into rally wins. He can still do it. For sure he can still do it. But there are question marks. As there are question marks over Jari Matti. As to whether, not as to whether they can do the job, because we know they can do the job, but question marks as to whether they can consistently challenge Tänak and Neuville at Hyundai. That has to be what they're looking at, finding someone who can challenge those two. Otherwise, those two might win everything next year between them. There is every possibility they might win everything between them next year. But Toyota have to have someone to challenge. Is it Meek? Is it Latvala? Well, they're great team players, and I would have them. I would have certainly Meek in the team, and Latvala, well, yeah, I would probably have him as well. But then, you've got other drivers who can contribute. There's Craig Breen. Clearly, there's Andreas Mikkelsen. It certainly looks like Andreas Mikkelsen will be available next year. There's Hayden Patten. There's Mads Osberg. All of these drivers will give you consistency. Now, the other rumour floating around the service park is that, having looked at what Mr. Adamo has done at Hyundai this year, where he's rotated his drivers and it served him well, in particular on the gravel rounds where drivers, having missed a couple of rounds, are coming in with favourable starting positions, might we see some rotation at Toyota? Every chance that might happen. Who might be involved? Well, I think Meek is definitely involved. Really do. I think he's done enough this year to get himself another go at it next year. Latvala, I'm uncertain. Would you have a look at Andreas Mikkelsen? Yeah, you'd have to. Mikkelsen, when he's been brought in this year, when he's been rotated, has come in, certainly in the latter half of the year, 2/3 of the year even, he's come in and he's performed, and he has delivered. Not delivered wins, delivered consistent performances, delivered podiums. That is what you'll be looking for if you want to challenge for the manufacturers. Hayden Patten, outside chance, real outside chance. Craig Breen, well, again, it depends. It depends on what happens with the Ogier. We all thought that when Tänak decided what he was going to do, perhaps things would start to fall into place. Well, they're not falling into place. It's really just creating more questions. Is Ogier staying at Citroën? If Ogier goes to Citroën, who drives for Citroën? Mads Osberg has to be in prime position, but Craig Breen, I would think, is in with a good chance of getting a drive at Citroën as well. Do you know what? Really, there are awful lot of questions still to be answered. What I would say, in trying to perhaps pull all this together in terms of the driver market, what I would say is that I am 100% certain that Tänak is going to Toyota, going from Toyota and to Hyundai. So I think the team there will be Neuville, Tänak, and as we know, Sordo and Loeb are contracted. They will rotate the third car. I think it'll be 4 drivers. That means there's no place, I can't see a place anyway, for Craig Breen or for Andreas Mikkelsen at Hyundai. We know that. Beyond that, we don't know an awful lot. We know Toyota have an issue in finding a driver that can challenge them. We know Citroën have an issue in getting that car good enough to give Ogier the chance to compete for another title. And he won't want to just turn up next year to drive around and develop that car. He will not want to do that. He will want to be in a position to challenge. We haven't talked at all then about the situation at M Sport. Teemu Sunonen and Elvin Evans, you have to say, is Elvin Evans potentially a target for Toyota next year? Well, he has to be, because he's shown, particularly in Corsica and on 1 or 2 other events, that he has rally winning abilities. It is just a little bit of a headache working out who might go where. There are a number of drivers that are out of contract. More drivers are out of contracts than are in contracts, or solid contracts for next. So yeah, really, it's a very, very unclear situation is all that we can say. But it'll give us plenty to talk about in the weeks leading up to Rally Australia. And then I suspect even in the weeks after Rally Australia. So many permutations that need to be considered. And you know what? Maybe Rally Australia is going to prove quite an interesting one. I don't think, by the way, that we've seen the finished driver lineup for Rally Australia. I think we may get a surprise or two before Rally Australia comes along as to who's there, who may not be there. We'll have to wait and see. I'm certainly hearing some interesting talk about who might be going to Australia. And Australia could be a pivotal event. Mickelson, we know, loves Australia. Mickelson, if he were to go to Australia and win Rally Australia, he puts himself right back in the picture with everyone, surely. But as I say, so much to work out. It's almost headache time in terms of silly season. But I hope maybe I've given you a few things to think about there. Rather confusing. I think I've confused myself with it all. But as I say, hopefully I've given you a few things to think about. My mug, what I'm going to do is put a little note on my Colin Clark Facebook page. Look at this. You see that? Who's that handsome fella? That's me. Isn't that great? Look, we'll go around there. Little Scottish helmets. Oh, and there's me in my little green tabard as well. And it says somewhere on it, yeah, it's my kitchen table shakedown mug. Fantastic. Fantastic. No, this was given to me in Spain, and I will put the details of the lovely gentleman on my Facebook page who's made these up for me. If you do need to get mugs and you do want someone to do some designs for you, he's the guy for sure. Lovely, lukewarm tea. Do like it. So we'll just finish by once again offering our congratulations to Ott and Martin and Toyota. A really magnificent win in the 2019 World Rally Championship. The first, I suspect, of many championship titles for Martin and for Ott. And again, I gotta pay tribute to the wonderful Estonian fans. You guys were just quite wonderful. And you have been, never mind all rally, never mind all year, you have been really for the past couple of decades. Really since Marco Martin first came onto the scene. We can't possibly forget those scenes in Jyväskylä when Marco Martin took that victory and basically Jyväskylä was taken over by Estonia. It was reminiscent of that in Salou this weekend. It really was. So guys, well done. You behaved yourselves wonderfully. You created a wonderful atmosphere and you are an absolute asset, Estonian rally fans, to the world of rallying. So folks, again, I'll just finish by reminding you, please, if you're watching and enjoying on Facebook, just press the wee like button and perhaps share on Facebook. Maybe even leave a little comment if you've enjoyed it. And the same on YouTube. Subscribe to the channel, leave a little comment, but definitely leave a little like. I'm learning these things. Likes actually count for something on YouTube. So if you could do that as well, that would be great. Folks, again, I'm really sorry for confusing you about silly season if it's confused you. But as I say, it gives us plenty to be talking about in the coming weeks. So once again, thank you very, very much for joining me at the kitchen table.